The hall was silent except for the faint hum of voices echoing from the art exhibition. Hundreds of people stood in admiration before a large painting, the portrait of a young woman with deep, soulful eyes and a gentle smile that seemed to hide a lifetime of secrets. It was titled The Forgotten Child. As the crowd whispered in awe, an old janitor stood at the back, gripping his mop tightly. His weathered hands trembled as his eyes locked onto the portrait. Tears welled up in his eyes. He took a shaky step forward, whispering hoarsely, "Ma'am, the girl in that painting, she lived with me in the orphanage." The curator, Mrs. Helen, turned toward him, startled. "What did you just say?" she asked softly. The janitor's voice broke. "That's Lily. Little Lily. I thought she didn't make it." Years earlier, in a rain-soaked city, a small orphanage stood on the edge of town, the St. Mary's Home for Children. The place was old, its paint peeling, but inside it was full of laughter and chaos. Among all the children, one little girl stood out. Her name was Lily, a quiet, fragile child with bright eyes and a love for drawing. The janitor, whose name was Mr. Thomas, had worked there for over 20 years. He wasn't a man of many words, but he loved the children deeply, especially Lily. She reminded him of the daughter he lost in an accident long ago. Lily often followed him around, asking endless questions about life and stories about the stars. But life in the orphanage wasn't easy. Food was scarce, donations were rare, and the children often went to bed hungry. Lily would draw pictures on scraps of newspaper to distract the others from their hunger. She drew flowers, faces, and homes, places she wished she could belong to. One cold night, a fire broke out in the orphanage. Flames spread fast through the wooden building. Screams filled the air as children ran in panic. Mr. Thomas rushed through the smoke, pulling out as many children as he could. But when he turned back for Lily, part of the ceiling collapsed. By the time firefighters arrived, the building was nearly gone. When the ashes cooled, no trace of Lily was found. Many believe she didn't survive. Mr. Thomas never forgave himself. The orphanage closed after that tragedy, and he spent the rest of his life working in schools and public buildings, quietly carrying the guilt of losing her. Decades later, the city's art museum was hosting a special exhibition titled Faces of Hope. The featured artist, a mysterious woman who never showed her face publicly, was said to have grown up in orphanage before finding her voice through art. Her paintings had touched hearts around the world. When the janitor started working part-time at the museum, he didn't think much of it. He swept the floors, emptied the trash, and occasionally looked at the paintings. But that night, as he glanced up at the portrait under the spotlight, his heart stopped. That smile, those eyes, the same innocence, the same child. He rushed to the curator and whispered, "Ma'am, the girl lived with me in the orphanage." Mrs. Helen froze. "Are you sure?" "I'd recognize those eyes anywhere," Thomas replied, his voice trembling. "That's Lily. She used to draw all the time, just like this." Helen looked thoughtful. "The artist, her name is Elle Rivers. She never uses her full name, but she insisted that her biggest painting, this one, be called The Forgotten Child." The janitor could barely breathe. "Elle Rivers, Lily Rivers," he murmured. "It has to be her." The next day, the museum staff arranged a private meeting. When the artist arrived, she wore a simple black dress and a scarf covering her hair. She smiled politely as she walked in, not knowing what was waiting for her. When she saw the old janitor standing by her painting, she froze. He looked at her for a long moment before whispering, "Lily?" Her eyes widened, trembling as tears filled them. "Mr. Thomas?" she whispered back. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his frail body. For a moment, time stopped. The crowd in the gallery fell silent, watching the emotional reunion unfold before them. Through tears, Lily told her story. That night, during the fire, she had been pulled out by a firefighter but was taken to another town. No one knew her name, and she grew up in different foster homes. She always remembered the man who taught her kindness, who gave her hope when she had none. "When I started painting," she said softly, "I painted you too. The man with the broom and the kind heart. You were the only family I ever knew." The reunion made headlines across the city. News outlets called it the miracle at the museum. People were moved by their story, a tale of love, loss and reunion after decades apart. The museum decided to dedicate a new section to the story of Lily and Mr. Thomas, calling it Home Found Again. For the rest of his days, Mr. Thomas worked in that museum, now with pride. Every morning he stood before Lily's portrait, tears glistening in his eyes, not from sorrow, but from peace. And Lily often visited, sitting quietly beside him as they shared old memories, laughter, and the warmth they both missed for so long. She said once, "You know, Mr. Thomas, I used to think I was a forgotten child, but now I know I was just waiting to be found." He smiled gently, "And I was waiting for my little girl to come home." Moral message: sometimes the people who touch our lives the deepest are related by blood. They're the ones who love us when no one else does. Kindness has a way of finding its way back, even through the years, even through the ashes.